Hi guys, welcome to my channel. How are you all doing? So guys, last week I uploaded a video on the controversy on Miss South African contest, and guys, if you haven't watched this video, you can click on the link below in the description box and watch this video so that you will be able to participate in this discussion, because I feel this is a very important one. So guys, there's been a trending topic of Miss Chidimma Onwe Adetshina, who has been bashed by South Africa for competing in Miss South African competition. According to South Africans, she is not a South African and she is not qualified to contest in this competition. On the other hand, a Miss Sherry Wang has been cheered on by the same South Africans. The question that will be on everybody's lips right now is, why is South African accepting Miss Sherry Wang and then rejecting Miss Chidimma? So guys, let's watch people's reaction, and when we get back, I'll give you a detailed opinion and evidence on whether or not Miss Chidimma is qualified to contest in Miss South African competition. And probably when I'm done, you might change your opinion on this. So guys, let's watch.
Been a conversation for just over a week now, and I'm keen to hear your thoughts on, when you see the conversation really starting to make waves on social media. This young woman, Chidimma, Vanessa, Onwe, Adetshina, a contestant in this year's Miss South Africa pageant. Your first thoughts?
Look, I think the rhetoric around her citizenship status, I think more than anything, it's just an anti-black and xenophobic sentiment. If you look at the arguments that have been made, people are arguing on behalf of the fact that one of her parents or both of them are not South African or don't have South African origin. But if you look at the requirements to enter Miss SA, you have to be a citizen with an SA ID book. And the fact that she's made it this far actually proves that she's in fact got the minimum criteria. So the argument should have been a non-starter to begin with.
Yeah, one of the discussions that, one of the points that had been made is many South Africans that perhaps are first or second or even third generation from another country, but are citizens of South Africa, do live in this country. And there's the argument that had her name, for instance, been, Michelle Adetshina, that it would have been different. The fact that her name is Chidimma Vanessa Onwe Adetshina as well has sparked the attention. What do you say to that? Is that a surface level discussion?
Look, if we take the discussion at face value, then it might seem that that's the only issue that's at play. But if we are going to take the matter for what people are purporting it to be, then how far along a line down the line of someone's lineage do we have to look for them to be considered South African? Do they have to have South African parents? Does it have to go further to their grandparents, great-grandparents? Or does the discussion then become only indigenous inhabitants of South Africa, where it becomes a matter where those who are declared First Nation status by the UN, will they be the only ones who are declared South African enough to compete on a stage like this? And I mean, that's something that everyone can admit would become ridiculous. And I don't just say that based on what's happening now, but I say that in my capacity as a chief of an indigenous tribe myself. This isn't something where we can define South African as just by your parents or your grandparents. Being South African has a lot more to do with various other factors. Like our constitution also points out, the country it belongs to everyone who inhabits it. So the discussion, I think people need to have an honest reflection in terms of where our society is right now and where our tolerance for the rest of our continent lies, because South Africa is not an island. We are still part of Africa. And outside of that, she is a South African herself. So she shouldn't be facing the backlash that she's currently facing.
Yeah.
A Miss South Africa contestant has come under fire after South Africans are saying that she should not be eligible to compete in Miss South Africa because she is half Nigerian. Let's talk about this culture. Before I go into the story, I just have to say that I am appalled at this behavior that we're seeing online. It makes absolutely no sense to hate on somebody because they have a half Nigerian heritage. And I think this conversation is really going to speak to the concept of knowledge is power, because South Africans clearly don't know themselves if they're going to be mad about this. So we all know that Miss South Africa happens every single year, and it's a pageant where we crown somebody to be be the darling of South Africa. She does charity work, etc. This year, the contestants have come out. They've made their videos for social media. And there's one girl in particular who made a video, and she's there saying she wants to be a contestant, and people are saying she should not be able to participate because she has half Nigerian heritage. The young lady's name is Chidimma Vanessa Onwe, and I hope I'm saying that correctly. And people are saying that because she's half Nigerian, she should not be eligible to compete in Miss South Africa because she couldn't possibly understand what South Africans are going through, and she wouldn't be a great representative for the country because she's not South African. Now, what baffles me about this is that these could only be utterances of people who don't understand their heritage and their history as African people. You know, there's something called the Bantu migration, and a lot of people don't know about it because our education system in South Africa does not teach us about the origins of Africa, African people, and what it is to be a South African. But most of the tribes that we know now, Zulu, Sotho, Pedi, Venda, all of those tribes that exist in South Africa, most of them do not originate from South Africa. If you look at the ancestry of those tribes, most of them originate from West Africa and East Africa, which means most of us as South Africans actually have Nigerian, Ghanaian, Angolan, etc. blood running within us because it's part of our original ancestry. But we're not tied enough to that ancestry because it happened so long ago that we think that being a South African means that your entire ancestry comes from here, and that is not the case. So most of us have Nigerian in us, or Ghanaian in us, or any other tribe that would be deemed as non-South African. And actually, being South African just means being born in South Africa. That's really what being a South African is. Obviously, there are nuances to it, but if we're going to go to the basics of it, especially if we're thinking about the Bantu migration and the history of Africa and Africans coming to South Africa, to be a South African mainly means that you must be born in South Africa. Mainly means that you must be born in South Africa. Vanessa is born in South Africa. In fact, she's half Nigerian, and then I think her mother is South African. So the fact that people are saying because she has that half Nigerian ancestry or that half Nigerian heritage that she's not eligible is unfair. Because when you look at previous Miss South Africa contests, and even now the girls who have put their names up to be eligible to be part of the competition, it's a diverse group. We've got people with European heritage, we've got people with Asian heritage, and so it would make no sense that the person with probably the most African heritage should be the one who is called out and they said she doesn't represent African people. In fact, she represents them more than the Asian and the European people do. So I really think a lot of us need to start Googling our history, going to ask our grandparents and family members what it is to be African and the history of what it is to be an African person and a South African person and what South Africa is. Because South Africa really is a melting pot of different cultures that come from different places. It's not necessarily that most of these cultures originate from South Africa. So when we say that we don't want her to be part of Miss South Africa, we're actually hating ourselves. We are saying that we don't want Africans to be part of it because we are African. This is not a case of xenophobia. Xenophobia is hating something that is foreign to you. There is no way Vanessa can be foreign to you because the same ancestry that runs through her runs through you. So this can only be a case of self-hatred. I know that a lot of people have fallen victim to the vitriol and the propaganda that our ministers have punted through the media, trying to make it seem like African people who were not born in South Africa are the problem to most of our employment and economic crises, which is not true. So we really need to unlearn a lot of things. But guys, she is stunning. She represents so many of us, and she is a fellow African person. The kinds of comments that we're seeing online are completely unacceptable, and we really need to start working on how we view ourselves as African people and start loving ourselves. This is not xenophobia. Xenophobia would be if she was European or Asian, you know, being afraid of something that is foreign. This is not a foreigner. This person is African. I really think we need to start talking about these things more. Tell me what you think in the comment section below, and what would you do if you were Vanessa, because I can imagine that this is playing a lot on her psyche and on her mental health. Let's talk about it in the comment section below.
Dear black people, I think we need to chat. It may not be my place, so forgive me, but I am simply an innocent observer. So I need to tell you this. I always asked, why is Africa the most exploited continent in the world? Have you noticed? There's a statistic that says for every dollar that arrives into Africa, $20 to $50 leaves the continent. Did you know that? Yes, I'm sure you are aware. This is why it frustrates me that when I see this news. It says here, South African model Chidimma Vanessa Onwe, she entered into Miss SA, and the amount of hatred and vitriol she received from other black people, saying no, she cannot enter. She's Nigerian. She cannot be South African. I mean, why? Are you aware of Sherry Wang? She's of Chinese descent, and she's entered the competition, and no one is saying anything. What's that about? I don't know how they did it. I'm referring to every non-African country or organization that have vested financial interest in Africa. I don't know how they did it. But over the years, many of it, decades, maybe even centuries, have convinced you to hate each other more than anyone else. Do you know that even we praise people who steal from African continent? People who live in amazing mansions, who are exploiting workers, and we treat them with more respect than the fellow African. Oh my God. You need to understand that having you in conflict, having you fight each other is in their best interest, because every time you fight, they take your resources under your feet for filthy cheap. They are getting wealthier every single day while you are struggling, while you deserve the wealth that Africa has. If you don't realize that you are one people under this continent, where borders were artificially created by other countries in order to separate you. They convinced you that Zimbabweans and South Africans and Mozambicans are different. They told you that. Until you realize it and rise up, until you acknowledge this problem, we cannot move forward. You know what? Now I realized the future and definitely the prosperity of Africa is in your hands and no one else. But you've got...
South Africans, are you okay? Listen, Chidinma Adetshina is not the reason why you're unemployed. She's not the reason why our government gives us 315 grand. And that's the problem with South Africa. We tend to direct our anger to the wrong people instead of our government. So if they don't provide textbooks, we burn down the school. If they don't provide employment, then we attack the guy who opened the tuck shop around the corner. Logically doesn't make sense. This Afrophobic, xenophobic rhetoric is starting to stick on South Africa, and it's not a cute look. Chidimma, there are 3 ways in South Africa that a person could be a citizen. Go look it up. Go look at the Citizen Act. Through birth, through descent, through naturalization. Through birth, she's South African. Descent, who? Her mom. A close family friend has confirmed that her grandmother is a Zulu woman who had a child with a Mozambican man. And then they had Chidimma's mom. And Chidimma's mom now marries a Nigerian man, and they have Chidimma. So she is South African. It's not her problem that her father stayed around long enough to actually give her beautiful names. You are directing your anger to the wrong people. Look up Vanessa, who was Portuguese Angolan. She won. She went to represent South Africa in Miss Universe, and she came out second. There are Asians on the panel. Is the problem that she's Nigerian, or the problem that you don't believe she's South African? Like, I'm really trying to figure it out, because this amount of hate to this child should never ever be justified.
You know what the sad thing is that if she had an English surname, we would not be having this discussion. If she had some European last name, we would not be having this discussion. Shame on you, self-hating, ignorant bunch.
So guys, I included some tweets from Twitter. One said, call it xenophobia, whatever you want, but we can't be represented by Nigeria while we have our own people. That is just pure disrespect to South Africans. Another tweet said, we need to sign a petition to get Chidimma Onwe, the Nigerian, to be disqualified as Miss South Africa. She can't even speak our language. She knows nothing about our culture. We South Africans can't allow her to represent us as Miss South Africa. Another tweet said, "You can't demolish and dismiss a sovereign state laws to xenophobia honestly. Her mother is from Mozambique and her father is Nigerian. Her laws should be respected and enforced fully. If a child is born in South Africa from foreign parents, does not automatically make the child a South African. Court rules in accordance with Immigration Act of 2022 and Child Registration Act. Chidimma is not a South African. Miss South African is a bogus vehicle of globalization agenda that is anti-patriotic and South African people." Guys, I saw this tweet and I had chills all over my body. It said, "Dear at official Miss SA at Crunches, please remove Vanessa Onwe Adetshina from Miss SA contestant. She's not South Africa. If you don't, we'll physically disrupt the Miss SA pageant." Guys, this is so scary to read. And guys, I also saw a clip by Julius Malema. He's a member of the National Assembly of South Africa, and he has this to say.
Your citizenship is determined by where you were born. So if she was born here, she's South African. It doesn't matter who they are. She's not her parents. She's herself. So why do you want to say she's from Nigeria or she's from Mozambique? She was born here. In America, actually, I don't know how many months. If I'm not wrong, if you are 6 months pregnant or so, they don't allow you to visit. Because they know that once you visit and you stay there and you give birth there, that child is American. Yeah, they know that as long you don't have to be American.
Yeah.
It's born in a hospital there.
Yeah.
Must be certified immediately that this is the child who was born in America. This is an American citizen. So we can't do that. We cannot punish people on the basis of where their parents come from.
Yeah.
So I've not followed the debate. I don't know if she's South African or not. But I would guess the Miss South Africa company would have done the necessary due diligence and come to a conclusion that she's a suitable candidate to contest.
Yeah.
So those are the things that are actually engineered by those who are spreading hatred amongst African people. Such people should not be supported.
So guys, after listening to both sides of the argument, I went on Google to search, and I searched citizenship in South Africa according to the law, and this came up. Any person born to or at least one South African parent receives citizenship by birth. Then guys, I went down and I saw South African Citizenship Act 88 of 1995. And this came up, guys. So you can be a South African citizen in 3 ways: citizenship by birth, citizenship by descent, and citizenship by naturalization. So guys, when I scrolled down to citizenship by birth. So it says any person who immediately prior to the date of commencement of this act was a South African by birth, or who is born in the Republic and after the commencement of this act. So it's saying basically if you're born in South Africa before or after this act, you're a South African. So another one is citizenship by descent. And guys, it said any person who immediately prior to the day of the commencement of this act was a South African citizen by descent, or who is born outside the Republic on or after the date of commencement, of whose parents was at the time of his or her birth a South African citizen, and whose birth is registered in terms of the provision of Section 13, the Birth and Date Registration Act. And so it's saying that if you have one parent who is born in South Africa, automatically you qualify for South African citizenship. Guys, the third one is citizenship by naturalization, which I don't think, but yes, we'll still read it. Any person who immediately prior to the day of the commencement of this act was a South African citizen by naturalization, or was or declared to be a South African citizen by registration, or was a citizen of naturalization of any former states. So automatically this person is a South African citizen. So in summary, you can be a South African citizen by 3 ways: citizenship by birth, citizenship by descent, citizenship by naturalization. So citizenship by birth, if you are born in the country, and then citizenship by descent, if one of your parents is a South African, and citizenship by naturalization. This is citizenship granted by the government if you've met all the requirements, or if you are qualified to be granted citizenship by the government. So now in Chidimma's case, Chidimma was born, or is born, to a Nigerian parents, Nigerian father, and to a South African mother. So looking at the citizenship laws of South Africa, Chidinma is qualified to be a citizenship by birth and also by descent. So at this point, you'll be asking yourself, why are South Africans now bashing her? According to some of them, it's because she does not have South African flag on her Instagram page. Guys, I'm sorry, I had to laugh at this point. So I went to some celebrities, South African celebrities page, to check whether they actually have the South African flag on their Instagram pages or their pages, and most of them don't have South African flag on their Instagram page or social media page. And guys, I was more confused than I was before. Putting a country's flag on your Instagram page or your social media page does not mean you are patriotic. It's your actions that shows whether you're patriotic or not. So it's so laughable that you say, oh, Chidimma does not have a South African flag on her Instagram page, and that is why she is not qualified to be a Miss South African contestant. Guys, this is actually laughable. Another reason that was raised, or argument that was raised by people bashing Chidimma, was that she is a Nigerian. Guys, I doubt if Chidimma has been to Nigeria in her life. I doubt if she even speaks any Nigerian language. And speaking of languages, Chidimma speaks 2 South African languages. She speaks Zulu and Xhosa. I don't know whether that is the right pronunciation, but she does speak 2 South African languages. At this point, how else do you want her to be South African enough? And guys, another argument raised by people bashing Chidimma was that if it is the other way around, that Nigerians will never let her contest. And guys, I wanted to laugh so badly, because before you say something, get your facts right. A former Miss Nigeria, Anna Bana, was born to a Nigerian mother and a white father, and she was allowed to contest without no controversy, no bashing. She contested and she won, and not for once did anybody question her about her Africanness. Another Miss Nigeria was Nene Etune. She was from Cameroon, and yes, she won Miss Nigeria. And the painful part, South Africans, is that the world is watching. And white men, they are listening to us, and they are chuckling to themselves. They are divided, they hate themselves, and that is how they will come in and do whatever they want, manipulate us, and get away with it. And one thing about the whites is that they always present a united front. They are always united in whatever they do, unlike Africans. So if a Chinese woman with Chinese heritage was allowed to participate in Miss South African contest freely without being bashed, why is your African sister being bashed? Why is your African sister being threatened? Why is your African sister being, there were petitions that were signed to get Miss Chidimma out of this contest. Dear South Africans, your African brothers and sisters are not at war with you. We share the same skin color, the same culture, and the same heritage. An Africa is an Africa in any continent he or she finds himself. Why not we uniting against a common enemy, the enemy that oppresses us, the enemy that manipulates us, and the enemy that makes life difficult for us? Guys, this is all I'm going to say on this issue. Please like and subscribe to my channel. Don't forget to share your thoughts in the comment section. Till we meet again, stay safe.